Hey, welcome back to another episode of Cream City Dreams. I'm your host, Megan Schultz, and this is the podcast where I introduce you to incredible Milwaukee women who are doing such cool things in our city, who are helping us to celebrate and appreciate all of the cool spaces and places that exist in Milwaukee, like today's guest, Grace Fuhr, the events director at Historic Milwaukee. And I don't know about you listeners, but I love to be constantly surprised and amazed by everything that this city has to offer. I have been here almost 18 years, and there is so much that I don't know about this city, its history, its architecture, its secrets. So I love what Grace and her team at Historic Milwaukee are doing to let us all in and to show us tour after tour everything that this city has on offer. And if you are around at the end of September for Doors Open Milwaukee, you might just want to grab a pen and paper for this episode so that you can jot down all of the spots that you want to see on the 2 days when those doors are open. All right, here is my interview with Grace. One thing I love about hosting this podcast is that I often get to see how incredibly cool my friends are. Today's guest and I know each other from our kids' school. Our daughters were in the same class, and mostly we see each other on the playground. But today I am excited to welcome Grace Fuhr on the podcast because Grace is the events director at Historic Milwaukee and the woman responsible for so many incredible tours throughout the year, but in particular, and specifically annually in September when we have our Doors Open Milwaukee. So welcome, Grace.
Thank you for having me. It's great to see you.
Absolutely. And for those listeners who might not be familiar with Doors Open, shame on you, but also this is a weekend in September when the doors around the city to super cool buildings that are usually not open to the public open up and give us community members the chance to peek inside and poke around and investigate and just see behind the scenes. So whether you're interested in architecture or art history or sewage or space travel, or I don't know, so many other cool things that keep our city running. And we'll talk about that, the specifics in a bit, but this is your chance. But Grace, I was doing a little bit of research on Historic Milwaukee where you work, and I found myself super inspired by the fact that this was an organization started very grassroots by people who just cared about the city, who didn't want to see the buildings or the architecture lost to new construction or demos or tear downs or whatever. And they just wanted to make sure we preserved what was beautiful and historic and cool about our city. And I just wondered, for listeners who might not be familiar with Historic Milwaukee in general, if you could just talk a little bit about the organization.
Yeah, thank you for that. So we started in the 1970s. We actually just celebrated our 50th anniversary last year in 2024. And the organization, as you said, started grassroots style as a reaction to a lot of things being torn down. So one huge landmark that would have been before our time was the Northwestern Railroad Train Depot, which is kind of where, if you've ever taken your kids to Betty Bryn Museum, would have been there and was a big, giant, iconic, beautiful railway station that was no longer in use and ultimately couldn't figure out what to do with it, so they tore it down. And this was in the wake of many big, beautiful historic mansions being torn down on Wisconsin Avenue, which would have been Grand Avenue historically. And so there were a group of people who were interested in preservation, who were literally going to the buildings and salvaging pieces of the mansions and of these terracotta chunks that were being torn down and put into landfills. And they thought we really need a preservation movement, which was happening on a national level and then was brought then to Milwaukee. So our organization focused at first on the Walker's Point neighborhood, which is one of Milwaukee's oldest neighborhoods. There's some homes that date back to the Civil War era there. And the organization was actually purchasing and restoring these homes as demonstration to show, you don't have to tear it down. You can invest in your house and preserve it. And this was all happening before Milwaukee had a historic preservation ordinance. So as an East Sider or somebody who lives in a historic building, that there's now a lot of rules in place in certain neighborhoods in Milwaukee that make it so that homeowners kind of have to preserve and restore their homes. And the people who are buying these houses are really passionate about that typically. And Walker's Point was the first neighborhood in Milwaukee to be registered as a national place of historic significance. So on a national level, which was cool. And it was a huge effort among these volunteers to just do a lot of research about the neighborhood. And the preservationists also worked with the local community. So they were making, even at the time, Walker's Point was a very Latinx neighborhood. So they were making like coloring books and educational materials in Spanish and English. And this was in the 1970s, which I think was a little bit before the era of really acknowledging communities on a local level. So that's cool. The organization ultimately at that time split into two. One kind of piece of it stayed in Walker's Point, and then the other chunk that Historic Milwaukee stemmed from became citywide and was decided to focus efforts more on education versus purchasing and restoring buildings, which can be costly and challenging to do. And then launched kind of based on the Chicago Architecture Center's business model of training volunteer docents to lead tours of the city. So at the time it was like kind of like with what the art museum does now, and we do still do guide training, but where it's a very in-depth, like multi-week dedication of these volunteers who learn about architecture and history and then go out and lead tours. So we are still doing that. We have tours of many Milwaukee neighborhoods, and right now we're running tours almost every day of the week except Tuesdays, and even that we probably need to offer on Tuesdays because the demand is there. As we're seeing like more tourism from a lot of people are visiting, taking day trips from Chicago or wherever else to explore our city, and then of course local residents want to take tours as well. But that kind of brings us to where we are now, which is in the Mackey building downtown, where if you've ever been to an event at the Grain Exchange Room, this is one of Milwaukee's most historic, intact commercial blocks in the city. So it's just a really very iconic and relevant place for us to be. And then we have a cool Milwaukee gift shop. So I know some listeners live out of town, but if you ever come to Milwaukee, come see us and take tours with us.
I did not know. I'm embarrassed to admit that despite our friendship, I did not know that these things existed. I didn't know there were tours on the daily of Milwaukee and all of these places. And I just loved that story so much because I love it. Sometimes it feels like our world is so big and it's so hard to make a difference on a bigger scale. And like, there's just not much you can do. But stories like this of people who just really care about something and come together and build a community around preservation. I just love that. I love those stories. Because this is a podcast about Milwaukee women, I want to just talk about you for a minute. We'll come back to the Doors Open and all of the things that you do there. But I know you were a political science major at UW-Milwaukee, but did you grow up in Milwaukee?
No, I grew up in Minnesota, so a suburb of Minneapolis. And then I was an exchange student in Switzerland as a gap year, basically between the time when I graduated from high school and when I came to Milwaukee. And I still didn't have a plan for where I would land when I was studying abroad. I kind of was like applying here and there. And truth be told, I wanted to go to Chicago because my sister was there, but ultimately couldn't kind of make it work in terms of where I would attend university. I had a childhood friend that was living in Milwaukee and really enjoying the fingerstyle guitar program at UW-Milwaukee, which is a world-renowned guitar program. And I was like, interesting. I had grown up kind of going from Minneapolis to Chicago to see my grandparents and then my sister, but I'd literally never been to Milwaukee before. So I had no ideas in my head of what Milwaukee looked like other than maybe an extension of Wisconsin, which was like a series of cornfields having just driven through. And then my parents visited while I was studying abroad, and they sent me pictures from the Milwaukee Art Museum on like a foggy day. I think prom was taking place. So there were like young women in dresses on the beach and on the waterfront. And my mind was blown. I thought it looked beautiful. And I just thought, all right, so I'll apply. And ended up getting into UW Milwaukee and attending school here and have stuck around ever since.
Yeah, isn't that funny how Milwaukee draws you in? My story was sort of the same. Like I was going to be here for 2 years, and I told my husband, "That's it. After this, we are," because I grew up in California. I was like, "We are going back to California." And then 18 years later, here I am.
You found a new coast.
Yes, the new coast. Yes. So, did you know that you were going to go into politics? Is that something? Were you thinking you would get into politics eventually?
I had in high school, I had started, I was the president of our Earth Club, which was like before it was cool to think about things being green. I think it was like maybe the year before an Inconvenient Truth documentary had come out. But yeah, so I knew I was just kind of inherently interested in politics. I think once I got into the nitty-gritty of poli-sci as a major, I, in some regards, regretted it because so much of political science is just like measuring human behavior in a very statistical way, which wasn't necessarily where my passion and interest lied. But I wound up graduating with that and a minor in German because I had learned to speak German during my year abroad and thought I should keep up with that a little bit. And then I wound up working for the city council for the city of Milwaukee. And then, yeah, and was pretty involved in politics for many years of my career. Ended up marrying an alderman who is now the budget director for the city and helped out on his campaigns, as well as working for State Senator Chris Larson as his district director, and then helped doing fundraising efforts on a statewide level for the state Senate Democratic Committee. And at this point now, for me, politics is just like I am a poll worker, in my neighborhood, and I generally knock doors each election cycle, depending on who the candidate is. But so it's ingrained in me. It's something that I'll always be involved in some capacity. It's just not my day job at this point.
Yeah. So then what was the trajectory into Historic Milwaukee? It sort of made me think when you said environmental and preservation, I was like, oh, maybe there's a running theme and things that you're fascinated by.
Yeah, certainly. Well, I think for me with historic preservation and historic Milwaukee, it's about placemaking and it's about, building experiences on a local level. And a lot of what we do as an organization is we're not doing advocacy work specifically, but we're raising awareness and getting people excited about the built environment and thinking about neighborhoods and what good design is and how that impacts your daily life, which is kind of political in a sense as well.
So what did it, when you first were at Historic Milwaukee, that first year of Doors Open, how many doors were in it? Like maybe give us some comparisons from then to now.
Yeah. I think the origin story of Doors Open is so cool too, because it was speaking on, the grassroots nature of the organization. There was one tour guide who was like a longtime volunteer tour guide and a retired librarian from Milwaukee Public Libraries, George Wagner, who attended Doors Open in Toronto and one in Denver. And he thought, this is so cool. We should totally do this in Milwaukee. We have great buildings and why not try it? So he presented the idea to the board of directors at the time. And this would have been about a year before I started. And they thought, okay, let's give it a shot. But we don't have any money, George. So he just volunteered to do it himself. Wow. So he went around for that first year, like to the downtown bid and just presenting to people and trying to get the idea off the ground. And it was kind of seemed a little bit out there, but wound up with 80 sites participating the first year, which is a lot.
Wow.
Because we're now at, last year we had 150 participating sites, and we'll wind up close to that for this year as well. But yeah, okay. 80 sites the first year and 10,000 people attended.
Wow.
Yeah, huge.
And do each of those sites have to promise? I mean, obviously, if they're opening their doors, I would expect they would have some staff on hand, but do their staff have to give the tours, be the spokespeople, be a part of it in order to participate?
Yeah. So kind of unlike a lot of what we do, which is generally we're providing the docent and doing the research. With Doors Open, we're asking the site to curate the experience for visitors. So they put together whatever tour or self-guided experience they want to for the public. And it's worked out really well over the years. But the amazing thing is like that first year, because we just another logistical aspect of it is that we provide volunteers to each of the sites to help keep count of visitors so that we know ultimately how many people are attending this thing. And then those volunteers are greeters and kind of help navigate Doors Open as a whole. And the first year we didn't have any volunteer software. We just were literally like emailing and calling. And I think they even did like a mailed letter to people to show up for your volunteer experience. But somehow it all pulled together. But 15 years later, as we're celebrating our 15th anniversary, we now have like some sophisticated software that allows us to assign volunteers and sign up the building, and all of that information feeds to the website now. So it's all kind of integrated and is a smooth operation.
Yeah. So can you give us an example of some of the places that that opt to be in it, and is it hard at this point now 15 years on to get places, or do you have people knocking down the door wanting to be a part of this?
Both.
Yeah.
So both are true. What I love about the event is that it's a citywide event and really emphasizes Milwaukee's neighborhood. So it's not just something that happens downtown, but we really get out and explore Milwaukee's communities. And so that's my favorite part of my job, is just getting to know people all across a very otherwise segregated city. And that the event allows everybody to do that. And so that's been a really cool aspect of the job and programming it. But specifically, I guess, some examples of really amazing partners that make the event super successful every year is the city of Milwaukee and like our municipal partners. So you mentioned sewage.
I'm
one thing.
So curious about that one.
Yes. So our Jones Island Water Reclamation Plant, which is where all of our sewage winds up and is cleaned before, water re-enters Lake Michigan. And they really do a phenomenal job just as a municipal service ultimately, but they open up during Doors Open and they let like 1,000 people tour the facility and really get into like the nitty gritty of how Milorganite is made. And they have bus tours and things for kids. And so that is just such a cool, definitely a crowd favorite of the event. And I know in other cities that wouldn't be like, that municipal partner wouldn't want to participate. So I think we're really lucky in Milwaukee that you can pretty much ask any location and at least have a meeting or a conversation about it. Whether they'll be able to open is kind of another question. I would say one challenge that we have, especially post-pandemic, is access to like our taller buildings. So US Bank, which is Wisconsin's tallest building at 40, and a big 40-story building, would have participated previous to the pandemic, but then have opted out. And the Journal Sentinel even wrote an article about like, why doesn't Milwaukee have an observation tower in any of our buildings? And they just haven't. The new buildings aren't like being constructed to have a top floor that would be open access to the public. So that's a challenge, but we do get some. So like the former Polaris restaurant, which was on the top of the Hyatt Hotel downtown, and it historically would have spun. Now it does not spin, but you do get 360-degree views of the city. So that's a really cool site that you can go to the top of now during Doors Open, and it's essentially an event space. And we typically work with, like, we'll find a building downtown that has a vacant 12th floor that you can see nice views from, because people they like a good view, and I do too. So that's something that I'm always kind of trying to keep my eyes open for. But then for me, and I think what's really exciting is, like I mentioned, going into these neighborhood locations. So one kind of out of the box location that's participating this year is Art Intersection MKE. And they are located kind of on the near west side on 35th and Valete. And the developer is converting what were like 11 vacant lots into a community hub. So this year when you visit, you'll be able to see this really cool garden and bioswale and murals that they've installed. And then the future plans is that they'll have constructed a pavilion and a community hub building. So each year, hopefully, as this development progresses, you'll be able to go back during Doors Open and see how the development has changed. Another spot that we got to do that with is Honeybee Sage Apothecary on King Drive. And kind of the year before they had their grand opening, when they were still filling up the space with all of their amazing teas. It was part of Doors Open, and then people got to come back and see as the space progressed each year. And of course, now it's a booming business. And if you go, you get to meet Angela, the amazing owner, and hear her story. So with Doors Open, kind of unlike a lot of our programming, which definitely focuses more on the history and the historic stories of Milwaukee, we're both tying a lot of historic infrastructure in our city with some new stories and how these buildings are being utilized today. So that's an aspect that is really fun during the tour.
Yeah. What would you say, and maybe it's one of the ones you've already mentioned, but is maybe the most unique or the most, unable to be seen in other cities, or something really cool about Milwaukee, or maybe your favorite, another way of saying your favorite?
Yeah, there's a few. One is the Model Railroad Club of Milwaukee. Are you familiar with that?
Are they the people that bring the trains to the dome sometimes? Are they affiliated with those people?
They do set up there, but this is it's like the oldest club in the country. And the really unique thing about it in terms of Doors Open is that they're literally like in a bridge support off of First Street in the Walker's Point neighborhood. So imagine where trains are running, and then you just are driving underneath this bridge, and then you park your car, and then you walk up, there's a door underneath the bridge. And when you open it up, suddenly you're like revealed to see this amazing model railroad club, which has two different rooms, and they're running little model trains throughout. And so they do such a good job, and the kids love it. And this is not a place that you can go that often. They have like a weekly meeting that you can join occasionally. But in terms of public access, Doors Open is definitely one that made this one quite popular. So that's been a lot of fun. We have another kind of wacky one, which is in partnership with the Department of Public Works. And I contacted them because I saw Doors Open Minneapolis is a newer Doors Open event, and they had their Department of Public Works open up a manhole cover and put a camera inside. So if you've ever, sometimes our city does that too when they're like cleaning it or doing some work down there. So I thought that would be fun to do for a Doors Open spot. So I asked our DPW to do that. And then they took it one step further, maybe like 3 steps further, and they block off a whole downtown block on Michigan Street, just west of the river downtown. They bring some of their big trucks down that the kids get to look at. They also have like a camera in a very historic sewer, which sounds weird, but it's actually, when you look at the footage, it's a Cream City brick sewer underneath our streets. And they actually like clean it before too, so it looks nice on camera.
Wait, so people can crawl down?
You don't get to go down.
Okay.
They have like a nice big TV monitor, and you get to see what's going on underneath. And then they have all these display boards and a bunch of staff from the Department of Public Works on hand to talk. So it's almost like a tiny version of Big Truck Day happening within Doors Open, which I thought was so cool of our city to really step up and offer such a fun thing for kids to do during Doors Open.
Yeah. Well, that was my next question. What are the ones for kids? But I think those two probably take the cake for kids.
Yeah. And we do have a printed passport that we make for kids. So it's like 24 sites that you can pick up a little printed pamphlet, and if you have kiddos, they can get it stamped at the 24 locations that are particularly kid friendly, because certainly some of them are more than others.
Yeah. Well, and it's a 2-day event, right? This year it's September 27th and 28th. Could you see 24? Is that possible?
We do. We take a survey of participants and ask how many sites you've seen this weekend. And I would say the average is like 4 to 10 on the high end. So 24 would be a lot for sure. Yeah.
Okay. And do you have to get a time slot to get into each event? Do you have to have a ticket for each event, or how does that work?
Great question. The 150 sites that will participate are free, no ticket required, with the caveat that some have varying hours. So there might be a location that's open just Saturday, not Sunday, or maybe they close at 4 instead of 5. But the official hours are 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Saturday and Sunday. We have a filter on our website that allows you to be like, what's open on Saturday morning? And then it'll just filter out all of those locations for you.
Okay.
Also on our website is a little favorites tab. So you can click, put a little star on a building that you hope to see, and that'll save in your web browser for when you're ready to go and tour.
Oh,
So
cool.
hopefully that makes it a little bit easier for people to plan their day. We do have about 40 locations in addition to the 150 that are ticketed tour sites that you do sign up for in advance. So a couple of examples of that would be the City Hall Bell Tower is open to tour, but you have to reserve a free ticket in advance. And then we do have some ticketed tours like of a walking tour. So we partner, for example, with the Wisconsin LGBT History Project, and they do a historic walk of neighborhood gay bars that are no longer there.
Okay.
And so that would be a ticketed tour that you'd book in advance, and those tickets become on sale in the beginning of September.
Okay. Okay. So people should pay attention to your website, bookmark on their calendar to jump back in on the 1st of September if they want to. I feel like when I was looking up reviews of Doors Open or looking for places that a lot of people liked, there's a ton of Reddit strands about people's experiences and what they do, and almost all positive.
Okay, good.
Super excited, yeah. And but one of them, I think I read, and I don't remember which place they were writing about, but said that the tickets sold out in 10 minutes or something. So
yes,
there must be some hot tickets.
There are. Yes, yeah. It's like a ticket master. It's like our Taylor Swift Eras tour.
Yes.
Yeah, so people do get really competitive about the ticketed tours, but I always like to remind folks that really the majority of the event is free, no ticket required. So if you're not trying to, spend a lot of time booking stuff on Eventbrite, then there's still lots to do without getting those ticketed tours. But the tickets first go on sale to Historic Milwaukee members the first week of September, and then they go on sale to the rest of the public the second week of September.
Okay.
And all of those municipal sites, so the Jones Island and City Hall tickets, those all wait for the public sale the following week.
Okay.
So that's as fair as possible.
Okay.
And typically, if you want to, Jones Island doesn't sell out super quick. So you can, if you're on your computer that day, you should be able to book a pair of tickets for sure.
Okay. And if somebody wanted to become a member, how much is membership and what does that get you?
Sure. Yeah, it starts at $25 for like senior individuals. Other individuals are about $40, and then it goes up from there for families. And then that gets you early access to those ticketed tours for Doors Open. And then you get to take all of our regular walking tours for free all year round. So it's a pretty fun membership. And then you get discounts to other cool tours that we do. So a new event that we did this summer is a tavern tour of our River West neighborhood. So you get to go into old bars and learn about the history of these taverns and drink a beer while you walk with our tour guide, Cindy, which that was really fun. And so we have lots of different kinds of programming that happens year round.
And I was looking on your website, you have an app as well with all of these tours?
Yes. Thanks for mentioning that. During Doors Open this year, we're actually going to launch a new neighborhood tour in the Havenwoods community. And we've been developing that in partnership with the Havenwoods Neighborhood Partnership. So the director there is narrating it. And we worked with a group of UWM students who helped research all of the stops. But we have about 20 neighborhood app tours now, and the majority of them are free. A couple of them are paid, but most are free. Last year, we launched a King Drive neighborhood tour as well as Lindsay Heights, and both of those are walking. The King Drive neighborhood tour is kind of broken up into 4 chunks because it's a very long tour. So you could do it in smaller bites, or you could do it as a driving tour or a bicycle tour. But again, those were also created in partnership with the bid on King Drive. And then Venus Williams from Alice's Garden helped develop the Lindsay Heights app tour. So,
cool.
So the Historic Milwaukee app tour is free to download. Many are free to take. And we hope, especially with Doors Open, let's say you're out traveling and and exploring, and you visit Alice's Garden and you think, I want to know more about this neighborhood, it's a great opportunity to come back and take a guided tour. Really, the tours, created by and for the people who live in the neighborhood too.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. And the people in the neighborhood also are the narrators? Like
Yes,
does Venus narrate hers?
Venus narrates, as well as Eugene, who's a gardener and neighbor who lives across the street from Alice's Garden.
Oh, that's so cool. That's so cool. What a gem she is in the
Yeah.
city.
Yeah, she is. And they always participate in Doors Open too. So big shout out to Alice's Garden if you haven't been there, or if you have, it's just such a special spot in our city to
Yes.
visit.
Yes. I'm curious in the 10 years that you've been there doing this? Is that right? More?
9 years, but yeah.
9 years. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any anecdotes about, I don't know, a visit that sparked a collaboration or a relationship, just fun anecdotes that you hear about from visitors?
Oh, cool. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, a lot of partnerships with, I think the app tour ultimately is kind of a result of the Doors Open partnerships that were created. We, during the pandemic, like everyone else, had to stop doing in-person programming, which is all of what we do. Uh,
Oh my
so everything
gosh,
went
yes.
virtual, right? And we actually did a Doors Open virtually, which led to a pretty great website that we have today. But as a result of that, we decided, everyone's kind of like, do we need an app? If you're pretty much any organization, it's like, should we do an app? And we had thought about it for many years, and the pandemic really pushed us over the edge of setting one up. And then as a result of the partnerships that we had created with these neighborhood groups, because of Doors Open, we were able to turn that into establishing these really great walking tours. So the first one was with VSCDC, which was formerly Layton Boulevard West, and that created a really cool app tour. And then just this year, 2 other partnerships that popped up as a result of Doors Open would be one with the public market, which we now have a monthly walking tour of in honor of their 20th anniversary as a public market. And then last year during Doors Open, we partnered with 100 Acre Collaborative Farm, which is Wisconsin's largest indoor hydroponic farm on 27th and Capitol. And as a result of them being part of Doors Open, we launched a tour series with them, which will probably go on to be like a tour series that they'll be able to sustain long term as a result of that, initial interaction with Doors Open. So we definitely find that like Doors Open can be used as a way of being like a grand opening. We did that with the Bradley Symphony Center and with the ballet, both had newer buildings that had grand openings that coincided with Doors Open, or it can be a way to kind of test the waters of a new tour or something that you're trying out as a site.
Yeah. So it opened doors, if you will.
Exactly. Yes.
I need a drum kit back here.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, and this is a podcast about Milwaukee women. And so, of course, it's hyper local because I love Milwaukee, as we were sort of talking about at the beginning. And I guess I'm wondering, after so many years here yourself, what is it that you love about Milwaukee, or what is working here and seeing this, all of these beautiful spaces and places? How has that enhanced your love of Milwaukee?
I'm always a fan of the ecology in Milwaukee and our lakes and our rivers, and I'm a big fan of going to the beach with my kids when the weather is nice like this. So I just keep falling more and more in love with that part of Milwaukee. As a side note, I dabble in surfing, and probably about 15 years ago, I met a friend who surfed on the Great Lakes, and she took me out one day on Lake Michigan, and I've now surfed a few other places like Costa Rica and Puerto Rico and California, and then back to Lake Michigan. And I'm not particularly good at it, but it's a lot of fun, and I really enjoy it. And I think it's such a cool thing about our Great Lake that, sets us apart from really the rest of the state, which is that we have a really amazing source of water here. So yes, that is something that I really enjoy about Milwaukee that goes beyond, the buildings in my job. But then I really enjoy too, my neighborhood, and Milwaukee is a city of neighborhoods, right? And so I live in the River West neighborhood, which has a lot of great parks and restaurants and things for my kids to do. But then we spend time on the east side, which is where my kids go to school. And then, of course, my job takes me throughout the rest of the city where I get to exposure to a lot of really other amazing things. And just to the point of ecology, too, we have so many great parks throughout the whole city, not
Mm.
just along the lake. So our Mitchell Park, and a newer park is Davidson Park that is very cool, that Harley Davidson actually constructed on the near west
Oh,
side. They
yes.
have a very
Yeah.
cool, like, nature-based playground. That is a fun spot to take kids to. So definitely the nature, being within the city
Yes.
is
Yes.
huge. Yeah.
Well, and also in my research, when you type in your name, I don't know if you know this, but your wedding photos come up. And oh my gosh, side note, can we talk about how cool that looks like? So listeners, I don't know if you don't mind if I put a link to this in the show notes, because
Sure.
the pictures are just so fun. You basically looks like all of your guests had bicycles and you guys
Yes.
went for a bike. Can you just briefly talk about that? Because it was so cool. I want to hear the story.
Yeah, so being an event planner, I was like, and then my husband and I have a love of riding our bicycles and just being urbanites generally. We're like, what if we do a bike tour during our our wedding? So we got married at the very iconic stairs in Lake Park by overlooking Lake Michigan. So, and we had our
Mm.
guests were facing out, looking at the lake. And from there, we organized a bike ride that went from Lake Park down iconic Newberry Boulevard, stopped at the Urban Ecology Center's like Rotary Park along the river there. We crossed the Locust Street Bridge, stopped at Reservoir Park at the top of the hill so you can see a really nice view of the skyline of Milwaukee. Headed to Swing Park, and then ended at Best Place for Historic Pabsbury. But the thing that really blew our minds was, okay, we're going to organize this bicycle tour, because you know how there's this thing typically, like maybe you get married, you have a ceremony, and then everybody has to like disperse for an hour while you do pictures or something like that. So we're like,
Yes.
let's skip that. Let's just do this fun bicycle tour. Maybe like 20 of our friends will do it, and then we'll all regroup for the party. And over 100 guests rode bicycles with us. So it was like a critical mass bicycle ride. And luckily, one of my dear friends was working for the bike fed at the time and is like a trained bike leader essentially. So they took the reins in
Oh,
leading the
nice.
tour. We had people like stopping traffic at intersections. Um, and then the thing that people will probably remember the most is that I had a couple of friends that were bringing tiny, tiny bottles of Miller High Life at each of the stops.
So it's like a bike pub crawl, also wedding.
Yes, yes, yeah. People, they were well hydrated, and then some of our friends or family who were not able to bike got to take bicycle rickshaws along the way. So,
Oh, that's so cool.
yeah, yeah, it was fun. It was very, very fun. And then we continue our bicycle tradition, and I have a big cargo e-bike that I throw both kids on the back of to get around town. So, yeah, I would also say Milwaukee is a great place for bicycling and bike commuting.
Yes, yes. So it lives on. I love that. Well, and because so this summer is particularly a season about joy, and I thought about holding off this interview until the fall because I really want to do a season. I think I mentioned this to you about spaces and places, and this seemed obvious, but I also really wanted to make sure that I got this episode out before all the tickets went out and before the event happened, in case I don't get the fall season off the ground before the end of September. But it's also a season about joy right now. And this just feels so joyful. So I feel like I can sneak you onto the season because getting out and about in Milwaukee and celebrating all of these cool spots is so joyful. But I'm curious on a more personal level. One of the things I'm asking all the guests this season is advice on, if you're looking for more joy in Milwaukee, what would you tell people?
I like that question. I kind of feel like I'm going to repeat myself a little bit and say beach and biking, getting
Mm,
outside.
yes, yeah.
We all know Milwaukee is one of the best places to be in summer. And I know it's been a little bit warm this summer too, but just getting out and exploring nature and being going to our parks and our beaches is a great way to reset and experience joy for me.
Yes, absolutely. I could not agree more. This is the city where you want to stay in the summer and not travel, so
Yes.
that we can take advantage of all that. Absolutely. The other question I always ask people at the end is, because this is a podcast about Milwaukee women, is there a Milwaukee woman who inspires you?
Hmm. Uh, we mentioned one that I will always bring up again and again, and that would be Venus Williams,
Mm,
who runs Alice's Garden, as well as Bondi Food Market and a building called The Table. And all three of these businesses just do so much for our community, and she has been an amazing partner to me on a personal level and within the city. So I'm always inspired to see what she does. And I once met with her and was kind of having a tough morning. I think I had like one of my kids was throwing up or and I was a half an hour late for a meeting or something like that. And her and another woman, amazing Milwaukee woman, Sharon Adams, both said, I just maybe was like, oh, I'm busy and feeling stressed out. And they were like, it's a time of abundance. So I love that. Thought and in terms of gardening and our season of abundance. So we have our kids and our careers and a lot of things going on and
mm,
we overflow
yeah.
it
Yes.
versus feeling like burnt out.
Yes. Overwhelmeth.
Yes.
Totally. Totally. Well, is there anything else that you want listeners to know that I have not asked or that hasn't come up that I should share or that you'd like to share?
I'd love to share just briefly as I'm hoping in a couple days on August 1st, we'll be hosting, this is a side project, so unrelated to Historic Milwaukee, but I'll put a shout out for new dance party called Revel and Release, which is building on the success of a very fun dance party that Interwoven, which is a kind of a publication and podcast about women's health in Milwaukee, is producing. They had a great dance party for moms generally on Mother's Day, and they're building on that success. And I'm helping out with a fun dance party on August 1st. So not just for moms, but any femme trans folks who want to come out and dance it out. The very cool thing is that this dance party takes place from 6:30 to 10 p.m. So you can be home by 11 and get your sleep in and wake up and do whatever you got to do the next day without having extra sleep on your head.
Yes.
um,
Yes.
and Doris Ori from Radio Milwaukee will be the DJ at that party at a very cool events venue in the third ward called Reveille on the
Nice.
Milwaukee River.
Oh, so fun. And yeah, longtime listeners will know Interwoven because Rebecca and Teresa, its founders, were on the pod in way, way, way back in season one. I think even before the podcast, before their first episode went out or near there. And yeah, they are super fun and hoping that this is something that keeps trending and that we just keep bringing back maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 times a year. Who knows? Because we need to talk about joy. I would
Yes.
say nighttime dancing with a bedtime still by 11. That is joyful. So
Yes.
joyful.
Exactly. Yes.
I can't do the 2 or 3 a.m. nights anymore. My body just doesn't do that. So this is so fun. So how would people get tickets for this? Do we know? Is it on their website?
Yeah, it would be on the Interwoven website, and it's also on Eventbrite. So Revel and Release, if you just search that, you'd be able to purchase tickets there. And
Awesome.
you could get tickets at the door.
Okay. And
Yeah.
I'll put the link in the show notes. So if you're listening between when this comes out and Friday the 1st, you can click that and get yourself some tickets and get down there. I am hoping to make it down there because I missed the last one. So I'm super
Yes.
excited to support this because I've been seeing these are popping up all over the country, these sort of early evening
Yeah.
women dance
It's
parties.
an international movement. I just read about a pop-up club in Paris that's for women right now, and then that article linked to a dance series that's happening in Germany. I refer back to my time that I hung out in Berlin and got to dance from 6 to 10 p.m. because there's just a 24-hour dance party going on in Berlin. So you can kind of plug in where you want to. And I'm like, this feels right. This is definitely something that we need in Milwaukee. So very excited to be part of it. And I hope to dance with you there.
Yes, yes, yes. Oh, well, thank you so much for joining me, Grace. I hope listeners are as excited as I am about the upcoming Doors Open in September. And I am grateful for you and your team over at Historic Milwaukee for all you do to keep the attention on this city that we all love so much, and to get people really, crossing bridges and getting out of our silos and out of the bubbles where we live, and exploring and experiencing everything that this city has to offer, all of the diversity and the different communities and the different pockets that are a part of the city. I love that something like Doors Open exists in Milwaukee for us to see. So thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, that was so fun. Listeners, I hope you are as inspired as I am to hop on the computer on September 1st or September 8th if you're not a member, and get your tickets and check out your favorites. Make your itinerary for your own Doors Open Milwaukee weekend. I love events like that bring us out of our silos, that have us crossing bridges that we don't normally cross. I am such a homebody is the wrong word, but neighborhood body. I feel like I don't get out of my neighborhood very much because I have a grocery store, I have a post office, I have all the things, the schools that my kids go to. But every time I do get out of it, every time I make the effort to get on a bike or get in the car or cross a bridge or wherever I need to go to get to somewhere new, I am always so glad I did. I'm always so inspired. It always leaves me feeling almost wide-eyed in the way international travel does, in terms of, wow, look at how cool this is. Look at how different this is from what I'm used to. Look at how in this very same city, we have so many different and diverse communities and peoples and spaces and places. So this conversation has inspired me for sure to get out, and I hope it's inspired you to do the same. I will put all of the links to Doors Open and Historic Milwaukee in case you maybe can't make the Doors Open weekend, but you would like to take a tour by a volunteer-led tour guide. As she said, they have tours almost every day. That public market and River West Tavern tour sounds super cool. Or if you're coming to town as a visitor and maybe can't quite line up with an actual tour, you can download the app and take yourself on a tour with some of Milwaukee's most beloved voices. Hello, Venus Williams. Hello, John Gerda. And if you were intrigued by the dance party that we talked about at the very end, I will put the link to the ticket sale site for that. So if you're listening to this between now and August 1st, you can get yourself a ticket and come down and dance with us before bedtime on Friday night. And if you missed that one, if you're listening to this after August 1st, thanks for tuning in. And keep up with the Interwoven website or socials, where they will be posting about the next dance, because this is something that they want to continue. It's a dance party that they want to keep bringing back time and time again because we need it. Revel and release. Who doesn't want to do both of those things? So put links to those socials as well in the show notes. And hopefully you have been following along on these Friday digests this summer, where I am debriefing, breaking down the social media detox that I've been on. And these last few weeks, Tekla Brumder Ross, my friend and clinical psychologist, has been coming back with her professional perspective on detoxing, which has been so helpful for me and hopefully for you. So she'll be here again this week. So be sure to tune into that episode on Fridays. Those are a little shorter than my Wednesday episodes, just bite-sized digests. But listeners, I will be back next week. We're getting close to the end of the season of joy. Not that I couldn't just continue in perpetuity with women who are bringing joy to Milwaukee, but at some point, I do have to wrap this season up, and we're getting close. So tune in next week, though, when I will be back with more Milwaukee women bringing the joy. Until then, Milwaukee, keep on dreaming.